Apple is the kind of headline here, but across the industry, we're back below early 2019 levels for shipments. What is the principal cause?
Really, demand slowed. Good to talk to you guys, by the way. It's nice to be on again. But honestly, it's really a demand story at this point. I think, the way we're looking at the entire market is we're basically at a correctional standpoint. And the correction is not just going to be this Q1 that we just put out a report this morning. Realistically, the correction is going to be probably most of this year, or the industry sees some growth around PCs. But so yeah, that's kind of where we're at this stage. Yeah. It's not a supply issue. It's not anything there. It's really a demand issue.
And Ryan, the reasoning behind the demand issue, is it that, well, some of these computers haven't been upgraded of late? We're still anticipating Apple to do that in the second half of the year. Everyone already over-indexed on purchasing them. Or is it actually we're now worried about our finances, we don't want to make big purchases?
I think it's probably more the latter. I think it's, you've got, sorry about that, I just bumped the table here. You've got the ongoing, inflation concerns that are rising cost of goods already. The global recession fear has not gone away. It's been tempered a little bit in some regions. So I think it's probably more the latter, that both consumers, companies, and education institutions are sort of holding on to their purse strings a little bit tighter than they would. And it makes sense. And I think a lot of the industry, from supply chain all the way up to the OEMs, they foresaw this coming.
Yeah.
I think the question was really, what's the magnitude going to be? And nobody wanted to, over sort of correct on the downside because they didn't want to miss an opportunity like many did throughout the pandemic. So I think we're at that point now where you're going to, we already heard a little bit from Samsung around memory, but we've got some really important tech earnings coming up in the next couple of weeks, which you guys know very well. I think we're going to start to hear a little bit more, probably going to hear a little bit more, the storm's not over, more so than the positives. But, I just want to sort of just preface by sort of saying that we still believe that, when we get into next year, that we're going to be at or a little above pre-pandemic levels. So there is some positive in all this, but we're going to hear some negativity, not only from what we put out today, but realistically probably for the next couple of quarters.
And Ed, we already heard the warnings. The CFO of Apple himself, Luca, was saying we're going to see double-digit declines in the Mac part of the business, but it's not just Apple being affected.
Yeah, and we were saying earlier, Ryan, how much is your data set a crystal ball ahead of earnings season? But I wonder if we can actually get even more granularity, right? It's not Apple. You look at Dell, greater than 30% decline, HP, greater than 24%. Is there any geographic or demographical breakdown that you can see real pullback from the consumer?
Yeah, well, it's happening across the board. I would say the pullback that we're seeing now, the shift, is probably more angled towards the developed markets in the last 6 months. And the reason for that is because more of the developing markets around the world had already sort of corrected for consumer pullback, hit a little bit harder on the wallet and so forth. And businesses sort of followed in sort of in that same segue, meaning, businesses in these emerging markets sort of said, hey, look, if we needed a PC, maybe we could do another 6 months without buying that PC. Or if people were going to refresh every 5 years, maybe we can get them to 6 years now. And that sort of prolongs the cost. So again, I know developed market versus emerging market doesn't really sort of break down the geographies. But, I think when you look at things, our expectation is that, the North American market has still been doing good in comparison to the global market. Yeah. We've seen pockets of, again, I use the word strength very lightly because it's really not strength, but a little bit better sort of opportunity in some of the European markets. China's seeing a little bit of recovery, going to take a little bit more time there, especially on the consumer side. So it's really spread out, but it's probably hitting the pullbacks hitting the developing markets a little bit more just because of the cost.